to it. And ladies and gentlemen, I hope I have him here. Rob Smith is problematic, the host of the podcast. Do we have Rob Smith?
You got me.
Rob, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing quite well. First of all, let me say thank you for your service. You are a decorated military veteran. I thank you for your service.
Yes.
Let's talk about this headline, right? And you know I'm not making this up, right? Fox News had this big headline about you, and it said,
yes.
Rob Smith says he is America's favorite Black, gay, veteran, millennial, conservative Republican. Now, obviously, there are some ideological differences with those various groups, which makes it really stand out. What I want to ask you about first thing I want to talk to you about is the notion that somehow Black people who vote for Democrats or progressives are on a plantation. And in order for them not to be on that plantation, they must vote for a Republican. Now, that has been, now you didn't say those words, but that has been a sentiment about independent thinking of Black people. What's your thought process as it relates to Black people choosing political leaders?
Well, first of all, when it comes to the plantation talk, I personally don't talk in the plantation speak. And so generally when I'm going on to things like this, I just need to be judged based on what I have said, right? Mm-hmm. So I've never said that Black people who vote for Democrats are on some sort of Democrat plantation. Now, what I think that goes into, and what some people who do speak in that language have said, is the idea that for, at least the past 30, 40 years, we have been voting as Black Americans, as African Americans, upwards of 90% for Democrats. And I think that's what it gets into. What it gets into is there is no other minority group of people that votes for Democrats in the way that African Americans do. Not Latino Americans, not Asian Americans, not gays and lesbians, of which myself, obviously I'm gay. So there's no other group that votes for Democrats in the way and in the numbers that African Americans do. And so that was the conversation. There's a lot of people that are talking about why. And I think that the reason why that Democrats vote, that Blacks vote in such high numbers for Democrats, it's a lot of different reasons. But first of all, I like to think, or at least I kind of blame the mainstream media for this, our culture as Black Americans is so overwhelmingly Democrat, right? So we've got our entertainers, our celebrities, we've got politician celebrities, we've got people, every message that we get from an African American that is in the public visible space in some way is a message of leftism, of liberal policies, or of voting for Democrats. And I think that is one of the major issues that I am trying to break through as somebody that kind of came out as this Black gay guy who's voting Republican, who believes in some sort of conservative ideologies. So I think that is there. And what we have to ask ourselves, and I would like to ask you, why do you think that Black people vote so heavily for Democrats?
Yeah, man, I know why. And it's not what you said. Let me tell you why Black people vote heavily for Democrats. I'm going to give you some facts. So I'm a professor. I believe in data, statistics, facts. I believe in science. Okay. Yeah. Under Democratic presidents, and this is a 48-year calculation. Under Democratic presidents, Black families' incomes grew on average about $1,000 annually, but only grew $142 annually under Republican presidents. The Black unemployment rate fell by a net of 8% under Democratic presidents, but went up 14% under Republican presidents. Across the years of Democratic leadership, Black poverty declined under Democratic presidents by a net of 23.6%, but increased by 3% when Republicans held the White House. Now,
so
those are facts.
Ask you a question about those facts.
Hold on one second.
I do want to ask you a question about those facts.
Hold on, Rob. You can ask me a question when I finish. Anyone can check me out at scholars.org, which culminates all of this data, nonpartisan, non-political organization. And all they do is straight data analytics. But go ahead, Rob.
Well, I wanted to ask you, so what of those statistics are tied into Democrat policies, right? So you can say that there are Black people. So basically the point that you're making is Black people just do better under Democrat presidents. So that's the point behind all the facts and data, right?
That's one issue. You asked me another question. What actual policies are connected to this cause and effect reality of economics and black people. And I can tell you the policies because I've researched that as well. One of the policies is the Department of Justice's aggression or aggressive prosecution of workplace discrimination. It actually led to more black people having similar income as their white counterparts. That was a direct cause and effect analysis of this study. Another cause and effect analysis.
So what you're saying? Well, hold on, because you just give me a lot of facts. So what you're saying is because
don't let the facts get in the way of the story.
I'm not letting the facts get in the way of the story. I can spit out a lot of statistics to you. I can say
I'm not spitting out statistics. I'm giving you the reality of the statistics of why black people vote Democrats, because black people generally do better under Democrats than under Republicans. The question is, Rob, why would black people vote for Republicans if they lose economically when a Republican is in the White House? That's the real question.
Well, the question is, so we're just getting out of the last 4 years of Republican administration, and this is pre-pandemic. Because God knows that the pandemic has really messed up.
I'm not even using the pandemic. You're right. I would not use the pandemic.
So even outside of the pandemic, were African Americans not doing well under the Trump administration? Because the thing about it is that when I'm talking to black liberals about all this stuff, you can give me all the facts and data and statistics in the world historically, like that's fine. And I think that a lot of this historical stuff is very relevant, and that leads into the ideas of why more African Americans will vote for Democrats, because they say, oh, Democrats help us and all this other stuff. But when you just take into consideration what has happened with the black unemployment rate going down, and all of this stuff, when you take into consideration opportunity zones, when you take into consideration that even at this point right now, and this is about 6 weeks into the Biden administration, right? But this is holistic over the last 4 years. We have more black entrepreneurs. We have more black millionaires. We have more of this stuff that is going on at this point now than at any point of American history, right? So these facts and data statistics that you're giving me would tell me that African Americans have gotten to a certain point where it's not necessarily we need to be waiting on politicians or whatever to do all of these things that you have said, where we need to start building things up ourselves, and we are being given.
So let's talk about that, Rob. Rob, I only got 20 minutes with you, brother, to be fair. So let's talk about that. What is policy? Policy is a social contract between the community and the government. That's what policy is. So when you talk about politicians doing stuff for people, it's not politicians doing stuff for people. Number one, that's my money. That's our money. Politicians don't make revenue. Politicians get paid on the tax dollars of people who work and pay into the taxation system. So when we talk about them doing things, they're doing things because we pay them to do things. We pay them to have policies that create fairness and equity within the marketplace. So let's be very clear about some of those policies. For example, you have record graduation rates from high school and colleges under Democratic presidents. Now, you may think there's no cause and effect, and there is a cause and effect because of the priority and the budgeting, where the money goes. I'm going to give you an example of the last administration, President Donald Trump. I'm giving you an example. He came out and said he was going to do all these favors for HBCUs. And I have to admit, Brother Rob, President Obama was no friend of HBCUs. Okay. I'm a graduate of an HBCU. President Obama did not move the needle. He kept it basically the same. Trump comes in and he says, hey, I'm going to do something massive. I'm going to do it more than anybody else. And then he actually takes money away from HBCUs. You know how he did it? He did it through what's called the Federal TRIO program. He presented a budget that defunded the Federal TRIO program. The reason why a lot of people didn't catch this, Rob, is because the Federal TRIO program is actually Upward Bound. I know you're familiar with Upward Bound. And Educational Talent Search. He defunded those programs, which are lifelines for HBCUs and first generational college students in depressed communities. Also, when you talk about opportunity zones, you brought up opportunity zones.
Yeah.
Who does the opportunity benefit? When you say opportunity zones, it's not an opportunity for the poor person living in the community. It's an opportunity for an investor to have a tax abatement to come in and invest in that community.
But then again, you have to say that if it's an opportunity for an investor to come in and invest in the community, what happens when the investors come in and invest in the community? Obviously, more jobs are created, more people start spending money, it becomes a better community, and then it attracts other people. So now let me go back to this. No.
Let me respond to that, Rob.
But I have to go back.
Rob,
you're speaking at me for a very long time, and I have to get these points.
That's fine, Rob. Brother, you're going to have time. If I was on your podcast, I would respect it. You're going to have time to respond. Now, You just brought up opportunity zones. Let's be very clear. Opportunity zones, yes, they attract investors. What do investors do? They come in, they artificially increase that local industry, and all property taxes increase as well. That means mama them, who has owned their property for 20 years, they now have to pay a higher property tax that they could not afford. Now you have to have a higher credit rating just to live in that local community. That contributes to excessive gentrification. That's how people get moved out of communities, is by those investors.
There's a lot of, I know that you're a PhD. I know that there's a lot of buzzwords and all this stuff. And I get
brother,
that.
this is truth and facts.
You know,
you got a master's degree from Columbia. You're an educated brother.
From Columbia. So it's truth and facts based on what the narrative you're pushing. That's fine. So let's go back to
brother, it's truth and facts. Period. They stand alone. Don't need
I want to talk about the HBCUs. Because one of the things that I kind of argue against right now, you know, you have a PhD, I have a master's degree, that's fine. So you have this idea that sort of, you know, more funding for HBCUs. And look, granted, this was a good thing that Trump did. I know that was a good thing, that permanently funding the HBCUs and all that. But I want to get to the idea, because sometimes everything isn't about policy and stuff all the time. Things are about culture that is related to policy. So we have a lot of African Americans in this country that have gone to HBCUs, that are going and getting degrees that are not worth the paper that they're printed on. And not only that, but these are first generation students that are taking out tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans to get these degrees. And one of the issues that I have with Democrat policies, and one of the issues that I have with the left's stance on education in the first place, and the education the way that you and I are educated, is that it is made to seem like these kids are not anything without that degree. It leads people to go take out, and when you talk about federal taxpayer funding for HBCUs, that's fine. These kids are taking out government loans that will always have to be paid back no matter what. And these government loans will always have to be paid back. They cannot get out of them even if they declare bankruptcy. So one of the cultural issues that I'm talking about that people need to start talking about, and especially that we need to start talking about as Black people, is we need to get away from this idea that you are nothing without this college degree. I think that these degrees are sending people into massive amounts of debt. This is bad policy that's leading these people to take out these loans, mind you. So I think that is a conversation that we need to have.
Rob,
I understand.
Let's have that conversation, because I agree with you 100%. As a matter of fact, if you check my resume, you will find that 3 months ago, I contributed $100,000 through the Rashad Richey Morning Show Scholarship to a technical training program in Atlanta, Georgia. And I did that because, one, I believe K through 12 education should bring back vocational training. I need high school graduates to know how to do stuff. I need them to know how to work on the car, to do electrical, to do carpentry, to do shop, etc. Right? So I believe that. I'm with you 100% on that. But when we talk about collegiate education, that's not a conversation just about college degrees. That's also a conversation about technical skills. So my doctorate is actually in, hold on, wait a minute. Let me explain. My doctorate is actually in policy analysis of higher education reform, which I make the argument and conclusion that our regular colleges should be in the game of making sure they have people workplace ready for whatever the trending workplace market is, because it always changes. You'll never have one degree that satisfies all eras of history, right? So that is something that I think we definitely should have a discussion about, and it should be part of the cultural reality of higher education. But Rob, you cannot dismiss the fact that money is at the root of the training. If you have the training and you still don't have the money, and you still have governments not regulating this out of control college affordability issue, you still have a problem on your hands.
But wait a minute, but that's the issue here, because you're talking about governments regulating the out of control college affordability issue. The reason that we're in the student loan debt crisis that we're in is because they knew, these institutions and universities know that they were getting that money no matter what. And so now I have to ask you, one of the main policies of the left, and we're talking about policy here, I loathe this idea of student loan debt forgiveness. Number one,
tell me why.
I loathe it because, number one, a lot of the conversation around student loan debt forgiveness is being driven by people that have advanced degrees. So now we know that a lot of the student loan debt outside of $100,000 a year, this is carried by people with advanced degrees, people, you know, doctors, lawyers, etc., who are going to make more money to eventually be able to pay off those degrees. So there's this idea that this student loan debt crisis is something that affects the working class. That is not true. Literally less than, I think, 20% of Americans actually go to college. So you have people on the left, people on your side of the aisle, pushing policies that are talking about student loan debt forgiveness. They're also talking about quote unquote free. What, you know, you guys talk a lot about free everything. You just said before that, you know, this is all your taxpayer dollars, so there's no such thing as free. So they're talking about free college and all that stuff. And then I want to ask you another question. Do you think that this stuff benefits Black Americans? Because it seems to me, and a big part of the reason why a lot of African Americans have tended to become more conservative and more Republican is the border crisis issue, is the illegal immigration issue, where now African Americans that were foundational to the building of this country are being asked to step aside so that illegal immigrants can be taken care of. And we're also fighting for resources in these communities that you speak about with illegal immigrants. And when you talk
let's talk about that, brother. We only got a few minutes because of the time code that you set for us. So let me first correct you on your numbers. It's not 20%, it's actually 40%. Closer to 40% of
40% of Americans go to college? That's not
40%
correct.
of Americans, sir. 40% of Americans, sir. 40% of Americans have either a bachelor's degree or some college.
That's is not correct.
Okay.
Oh, so
40%
of Americans.
Tell me where you're citing your numbers
from. About people.
Please tell me. No, sir. Sir, tell me where you're citing your numbers. I'll tell you why I'm citing mine.
I cited my numbers from the Manhattan Institute. That's where I got my numbers from.
I cited my numbers from the U.S. Census Bureau, sir. I cited my numbers from the U.S. Census Bureau educational attainment data. Let's see if you can see that.
Okay. So you said some college. Okay.
Can you see that?
That's great. All
right. So that's the fact.
I'm glad that you knew. I'm glad that you knew exactly what you were going to talk about, so that you could.
No, brother, you brought it up. I didn't bring up that. You brought that up. I'm just prepared.
You said a bachelor. You said a bachelor's degree or some college. I get it.
Correct. That's what I said.
Because I was saying when I gave my numbers, I was saying people that actually finished college. And when you talk about the student loan,
no, that's not what you said initially. I got the tape. That's not what you said initially. Maybe that's what you meant, Rob, but that's not what you said.
Well, that's not.
Let's move on to the other questions.
And when you take it back to, you're gonna have to let me finish the point,
brother. You asked me a question. One, I corrected a number that you was wrong about. And now I'm answering the question about immigration because you posed it to me. Would you like me to answer the question, or you want to finish out your 2 minutes?
I really wanted to finish out what I was saying before. So I'm talking about students that have actually completed. So we have, if you say 40% of people have some college and graduated, that's great. There's a lot of students that have not completed, right?
Correct.
And those people that have not completed are still
owe college
debt. They still owe college debt.
That is correct.
Right.
So this is not some minute problem, as you said, because you see,
I didn't call it a minute problem.
Some college, that is still a significant amount of money to pay back, even if you have some college. To your question about undocumented workers in the United States somehow taken away from others, it's amazing to me how when we have this discussion, we always blame the poor people who are brown. These are individuals who are not economically well off. They are trying to
I never said poor people that are brown. Don't put words.
Okay, well, I'm saying that every time we have a conversation about undocumented workers, you all call them illegals. Every time we have that conversation,
I never called them illegals. I said illegal immigrants.
But people on your side of the political aisle.
No, but here's the thing: we're having a conversation between Rob and Rashad. So
we are, but you
I don't know,
sir. You also attributed in this conversation what people in the left on my side of the aisle said. That those are your words. So I'm telling you what people on your aisle side of the aisle have said as well. They have called them illegals. Undocumented workers in America have one commonality. 88% of all undocumented workers in the United States of America came here for one reason. What's that reason, Rob?
I don't know. Tell me.
It's employment. They came here because of employment. 88% came here because of employment. Now, here's a question I have for you. Why is it that when we see 600 undocumented workers being arrested at a factory, we don't see the CEOs that hired them being arrested? We don't see the hiring manager being arrested. We don't see human resources being arrested.
Yeah, absolutely.
We don't see the
And that's
payroll
actually,
being
to
arrested.
tell you the truth, that stuff had actually started. The thing about it is, when we don't see those people being arrested, is because policies on the level, when we're talking about policy here, the policy is not to prosecute any of that stuff.
Under the Trump administration, you had 4 years. You mean to tell me that Republican policies are the reason why these individuals were not prosecuted?
No, people were being prosecuted because they have E-Verify. E-Verify is something that the left fights against. Is E-Verify not? No, I'm curious. Is E-Verify not a real thing? And let me give you a statistic, since you like statistics so much.
Hold on, Rob.
63% of illegal immigrant households use some form of welfare assistance, right?
Okay.
So if you have people that are coming over to seek a better life, to say,
now where did you get those
in your words?
Statistics
in your
from?
words. That is literally from, because I literally just did a podcast on
all right, that's fine. Just go ahead and tell me where you got it from, and I will absolutely check it out.
This is from the Center for Immigration Studies, because I just
Center
did a podcast
for Immigration Studies says what?
The Center for Immigration Studies says literally 63% of non-citizen households have access welfare programs. So this is a real thing.
Wait a minute.
And CIS
is access to them. Wait a minute. They have access to them, or they have already accessed them?
They have already accessed them.
Okay, and I'm going to look that up. I don't have that data set in front of me, and I don't do like you. I don't try to give numbers I don't know, but I will look it up. Now, before you go, one more question before you go, because you said a lot of things about Black Lives Matter, and I want to at least get you on the record, because
what have I said about Black Lives Matter that you found? So why don't I just respond to things that
I can read it to you, brother.
You seem very well prepared. Certainly more.
Of course. Why would I not be well prepared?
Huh?
Why would I not be well prepared?
Look, it's brother, it's your show. You should be very well prepared. I just wish that I gotten, some more of the topics. But okay, let's go ahead. Keep going.
Okay, but it's on the sheet that you have from the production team to talk about Black Lives Matter. I saw it.
So BLM.
So how was that something you're not prepared to talk about, brother?
I'm prepared to talk about Black Lives Matter. That's fine.
Okay.
Bring it
all
on.
right. So you made some mentions about Black Lives Matter. Yeah. You basically said that they only show up when they can blame the police and things like that.
Is that what I said?
You can break,
no, is that what I said? So read me the tweet and I'll respond to the tweet. I will respond to what I have said about Black Lives Matter.
I'm trying to find it. You're trying to find it.
I thought you were very prepared.
Hell, very prepared. I mean, but it's your quote, brother. Okay, here we go.
It's my quote. Look, I say it in tweet a lot.
Criticism of Black Lives Matter Corporate is not an attack on all Black people, on the history of Black America. Black networks will not have me on. You made another mention.
Is this all one tweet? No. These are
multiple tweets. These are multiple tweets.
So
let me ask you:
one tweet
have you ever said Black Lives Matter? Have you ever insinuated that Black Lives Matter only show up when the police are involved, when they can blame the police, and they don't really care about all Black lives? Have you ever made any sentiment like that?
I said that. Well, first of all, when we talk about Black Lives Matter, you have to differentiate Black Lives Matter Inc. from Black Lives Matter, the statement. Black Lives Matter Inc. gets a lot of press and a lot of attention from swooping in, from showing up whenever there's some sort of Black man involved in an altercation with the white police officer. So that is where BLM Inc. gets their energy from. When you look at what happened with with Jacob Blake, BLM swooped in and became all of this main story. It became this huge story. Remember, Kamala Harris said she's proud of Jacob Blake. She said all of this stuff. Then we find out weeks later, Jacob Blake had attacked the police officer with a knife. BLM Inc. disappeared. Kamala Harris never really responded to that. And so this is the BLM Inc. game, all right? And what I see with my own two eyes is that, number one, we have to stop giving BLM Inc. BLM Inc. does not own Black people, right? BLM Inc. does not speak for all Black people.
They don't say they do.
Any criticism of BLM Inc. is not inherently racist. But that is where the conversation has led. The conversation has led to where anybody that has any sort of criticism against BLM Inc. is somehow racist. So you have people terrified to poke holes in what these stories have a lot of holes in them. The George Floyd issue had a lot of holes in them. Jacob Blake, I mean, God, you can really go on and on and on. And what irritates me about the way our community, the Black community, reacts to Black Lives Matter in the way that they push the narrative is that facts don't even matter. You're a facts and data guy, right? So when it comes to BLM Inc. and when it comes to this idea that Black people are somehow hunted, in the words of LeBron James, by white police officers all across the country, this is taken as fact. And somehow all of these facts and data, the facts and data that you like so much, somehow disappeared. So you wouldn't know that, for example, there were only 15, again, from the Manhattan Institute, there were 15 unarmed Black men that were killed there were 15 Black men, period, that were killed in police shootings, altercations in 2019. You would think that there is some major epidemic. Now, do I agree that there's a conversation that needs to be had in terms of police brutality, in terms of some of the ways in which they go do things? Absolutely. But to claim that there is some massive epidemic of white police officers literally chasing down and killing Black men on the street just because they're racist or agents of white supremacy or whatever the leftist talking points are nowadays, that's not based in facts. So the left, so you guys, Democrats, you love facts and statistics. You know, you've bombarded me.
Let me
with
drop
a lot
some facts
of them
on you, Rob. You're kind of bloviating now, filibustering. So let me drop some facts on you. Individuals who are unarmed should not be killed by the police if the cop's life is not in danger. That's period. And I know we make a big deal about it. Say that again.
Have you ever? So my question to you is: have you ever?
Oh, wait a minute. I'm answering, brother. I just allowed you to bloviate.
But I wanted to ask you.
Well, you don't get to ask me right now. I get to respond to you, and then you can ask me something. But I'm going to respond to what you said first. Black Lives Matter is a grassroots advocacy movement, and yes, there is a grassroots advocacy organization. The reality is, they bring attention and awareness to issues that are systemic and connected to prejudicial treatment and racism in this country. Now hold on, brother. Say that again.
It's word soup.
Okay. And for some to suggest that Black Lives Matter should be in the business of doing anything else, that's like saying the United Negro College Fund should be in the business of giving scholarships to poor white children. There are needs out there outside of what Black Lives Matter addresses, but they address specific needs, specific problems as it relates to members of the Black community in relationship to police misconduct.
And so now, since Black Lives Matter has been around, since
Rob Smith,
around 2014.
Hold on, Rob Smith, I will also say this, brother, because there seems to be a real disconnect because people on your side and you specifically, you try to minimize what happens to unarmed Black people or brown people.
No, I don't.
By saying, it's not even that. It's not even that many. It's not even that many.
I've never said that.
But I said it seems like you try by saying that. Do we put a lot of emphasis on murder?
It seems like
Rob Smith. Do we put a lot of emphasis on murder? Do we?
No. So since you blow,
I'm saying in this country, do we put a lot of emphasis?
I wanted to ask you. So you go back. So
you want to answer that
question?
Back
to what you said. Well, I want to actually ask you. You know what? I think we're good.
Are you running? Come on, Rob. Come on, brother.
So are you going to answer my question?
Of course I am.
Question to you.
I don't run for nothing.
So my question to you is: you said before you went into all that stuff. Since it's what you said before is that no police officer should be killing anybody if their life is not in danger. Have you ever policed?
No. I'm not the
Have you ever been in a situation in which somebody else has threatened your life? Have you ever been in that situation?
Of course I have. I'm from Glenwood Road, man. I was a gangbanger. Of course I have.
Okay. So you've never policed. So since you're an ex-ganger, but you've also never policed. So now you can say that. So now you can step outside of that process and say that no police officer should ever be killing anybody if their life wasn't in danger. Let me ask you this, because
that's common sense. Are you a former cop?
That's common sense. I'm not a former cop. I am.
Well, wait a minute. If you're not a former cop,
but I'm a
how do you get to talk about it? No, brother, that don't count. If you're not a former cop,
it doesn't count.
No. If you're not a cop, a domestic cop.
I haven't. No, it doesn't matter. I have been in combat situations overseas where my life was put in danger, and I had to make a split-second decision. Right?
What's the combat rule?
So it's easy to.
I'm asking you, Rob. What's your combat rule?
And I'm tired of answering those questions. I'm going to tell you right now what my stance is on this.
You're tired of answering the question. I've answered every question you threw at me.
No, you haven't actually.
Yes,
You've
I have.
kind of just gone on. No,
You asked me, was I ever a cop? The answer is no. I've never been a police
and the
officer.
answer is no. Okay. And so what I'm trying to say, so the statement that I'm trying to make is that so you've never been a police officer. So
Yep.
what gives you the latitude to constitute what is or isn't life-threatening for a police officer in that situation?
I'm glad you asked that question. Great question, by the way. Right now in the United States, we use what's called a subjective standard in the law. That means that even if your belief is unreasonable as a cop, that your life was in danger, that the standard to justify you killing somebody is subjective to your own personal belief. Here's where the problem is, Rob. And I think you would agree with me if you think about this. In almost every other rendering of the law, you must have what's called an objective belief that something bad happened. What that means is that a reasonable person in that same situation would have reasonably believed that their life was in danger as well. But when it comes to police officers, based on the Supreme Court ruling and not the law, when it comes to cops, they get to make the assessment based on a subjective standard of their own personal belief, which is impossible almost to overcome in a court of law, because it's all based on the Supreme Court ruling predicated on whatever was in the officer's mind. You don't get that benefit, Rob. I don't get that benefit. If I go out and kill somebody, or if you go out and kill somebody today, and you say, oh my God, I thought my life was in danger, that won't cut it in the court of law, because you have what's called an objective standard, meaning a reasonable person in that same situation would have reasonably made the same decision. All I'm saying is that cops need to move out of a subjective standard and an objective standard like all of us. That's my only beef. That's my only push for police officers.
And what
Rob,
I would say to this, and what I would say to that is that all of us don't have to make those split-second decisions every day. But I wanted to ask you about BLM because I know we have to wrap up soon. What are some specific policy objectives do you think that they have been very successful at achieving? What policy has BLM done? Yeah. What policy has helped Black Americans? I'm curious.
One, reprioritizing $7.7 million in the budget of Minneapolis to go toward addressing underlying issues that lead to criminality, such as drug, alcohol addiction, mental health disorders, as well as making sure that there are policies in place to help communities fight systemic racism and prejudice by way of training, yes, by way of education, and also by way of seminar training from those local police departments. If you look at what happened in Minneapolis, they defunded or reprioritized $7.7 million to address.
And what happened when they did that? What happened when they did that?
Well, they just did it, brother.
When they defunded the police,
they just did it. Give them some time to work, brother.
No, but what happened when they? But what happened when they did it? When Minneapolis, and I know about Minneapolis because I was on the ground in Minneapolis last summer. When Minneapolis defunded the police, the crime went up to such a level that now they are scrambling to get emergency funding.
Why did it go up?
Remember anything?
Why did it go up?
Why did it go up? They don't.
Yeah.
Why did it go up?
No, Rob, go ahead. Why did it go up?
They defunded the police.
No, correct. It didn't go up. No. That's not why it went up. So let me tell you why the crime went up. And it happened in Atlanta. It happened in New York. It happened in a lot of places. They didn't fire not one cop. I want you to remember this. Not one police officer was let go. As a matter of fact, they hired more cops. What you had are cops calling in with the blue flu, meaning they were calling in saying that they couldn't work that day, or they were coming to work.
Now, what are the statistics for that? What are you're big on facts and statistics.
Rob, they were coming to work and not doing their job. You have admitted testimony from cops verifying that information. The problem I have with people like you is that you won't criticize those deadbeat cops who showed up for work and didn't do their jobs and left citizens.
But you're not giving me any facts and statistics. And here's the thing: the reason why the BLM stuff doesn't jive, and this is circular logic that you're using here, right? Okay, so number one, the BLM Inc. They say that the cops are bad, cops are evil, cops are racist.
No, they say bad cops are bad.
Okay. They say all cops are bad. And
no, they don't.
Realize.
They don't.
So you don't. So do you think? So do you not think that BLM Inc. and all of that rhetoric is responsible for an increase in we'll just say the hatred of cops from African Americans, from people on the street.
No,
You don't think that they're
not
all
the
responsible
reason.
for
They're
that?
the
You
reason
don't.
why you see cops being prosecuted today. They're the reason why you see policies
Okay.
being changed
Okay.
today. And they're also the
That's just
reason
not
why
true.
you see
No, you're just not
cities
being real. You're just not
investing
being real.
into underlying
This
issues
is
of
talking
criminality.
points at this point. This is
No,
not. You're
brother,
not
they're
being real. This is
facts, my
talking points
brother.
at this point.
Rob, I know you got to go,
But
man.
you're not giving me any facts, because even
Oh, go
when you
ahead.
talk
No,
about,
go ahead, brother.
I needed
Go
the
ahead.
statistics behind all of these police officers that were calling in with the blue flu from Minneapolis.
Rob, you know and I know that these
You know, and I
cops
know
are
aren't
not.
facts and statistics.
Rob,
Man,
Rob,
you can't
you've gone
pepper
so
me.
far off the rail, you can't even have a regular conversation. You know and I know that these cops are not submitting to survey tests. But I believe the black chiefs, the black law enforcement executives, Noble, the national organization of black law enforcement executives, who released statements saying that cops are calling in with the blue flu, that they're not responding to calls. I believe the mayors of these cities when they say it, because they're the ones who actually have to look at what's happening with command staff. So I believe them when they say this is happening.
Like the mayors that are getting sort of harassed by all these BLM activists, like those kinds of mayors.
That's a distraction point. I just provided to you
but
context.
It's not a distraction point.
You're giving
me facts and context.
This is happening. If you want to deny that, that's fine. That's on you, brother. I'm not denying the truth. The truth is these things are happening. That's the truth.
The truth is, when it's convenient for you, you've got all the facts together, and when it's not convenient for you, you can't find any facts.
But that is a fact. That is a fact. It may not be codified as a statistic, but it's a fact that you can check out with press releases from Noble, press releases from other mayors in cities around this country.
Because these organizations and press releases always tell the truth, huh? Where you believe in every press release?
Well, I believe in the individuals who signed that press release. It's not about the mode or method, Rob. It's about the person behind it. And when you have an individual that you believe in putting their signature on the statement, you tend to believe the statement. And that's where I'm at. You believe statements that other people have made because you believe in that person. So I'm telling you, I believe in the executives at Noble. I believe some of these mayors across the country that said this is happening in their city. Rob, it's been fun.
Yeah, it's been fun. Have a good one.
Thank you, brother. Okay. That was just getting tiresome. I may need to take a break after that. I may need to. But before I take a break, that was kind of fun, though.